It is time. Oi! Coming up today, we're making a Julia Child beef stew. This is Jamie and Julia.
Oh! Bon appetit.
I've been following a bit of a theme as of late. You know, it's winter. I've been craving that comforting cold weather food, you know? Stuff that makes you, well, it wraps around you like a warm blanket. We're gonna go to our cookbook that needs no intro from our gal JC. And you know, Julia, what do you got for us today? I want a stew. And there's no shortage of them in this cookbook. Quit the act, Jamie, you know exactly what you're making. Boeuf à la Catalane. Beef stew with rice, onions, and tomatoes. Here is a hearty dish from the Spanish Mediterranean corner of France. What else do you need? I'm all in at this point. Let's get cooking. So we gotta make some lardons. And for that you need a slab of bacon. This was a special purchase. I usually, when it comes to chunks of bacon and turning that into lardons, I usually just pick up slices of bacon and make that work and cut it up into little pieces. It's not exactly what Julia ever has in mind. You know, anytime I slice up the bacon into thin little pieces, it always just kind of turns into like exactly what you'd expect. What they mean is to find something like this, which is a slab of it, which is the bacon that has not been sliced yet. Okay, so we got to start with removing this rind. You can see it's kind of got the pigskin part on here. So with the fat on, this is around 1 pound. So I'm assuming if I cut this into thirds now, that should be exactly what I need. Cut this into lardons, which is 1.5 inch strips and 3/8 of an inch thick. 3/8 of an inch, something like that. You need a saucepan. Let's get that water to a simmer. Julia is asking me to, well, not asking me personally, but in the recipe she's saying to simmer the bacon. And this has come up quite a bit, and anytime it does, people go, why? Or people go, no, you're not supposed to do that. Or people go, that method's out of date. Why does it happen? Because I've done it a bunch of times and I never really asked why. It says here, so to simmer, reading off this. To simmer the bacon in water is to reduce the salt, nitrate, and the smoke flavor that is found in American bacon. And therefore the results will be closer to the original French recipes, which uses much lower salt in pork. Cool. Add the bacon. Do not boil. 10 minutes later, bacon is done simmering. I'm gonna use this today as my casserole dish, my Dutch oven. And what I'm gonna do is, instead, I am just gonna add it onto a plate lined with paper towel. 3 pounds of stewing beef. Julia has a list here of her selects the cut of meat that she suggests for this. Her first choice is rump roast, which is what I thought this was, but at the store it was called bottom round, which is another one of her choices. It's just not her first. Either way, this is her first choice or it's another choice. I'm comfortable with either. Cut these slices up into 2.5 inches across and 1 inch thick. Why I'm confused is because why would that be like that in stew? It ended up looking ridiculous. So what I did is just use the old noggin and made them into pieces that I think, well, at least it makes a little more sense to me. I want these pieces of meat to brown really nicely, so I'm gonna make sure they are incredibly dry. All right, let's turn the heat on to the sucker. So with the trimmed off fat from the beef, I'm gonna render that down. The bacon slab, remember that? I'm gonna add in some of the trimmed off fat from there as well. Why not just combine forces? Combine animals. And I kind of prematurely browned that pan. Few pieces at a time, let's brown the beef. Brown each side of the meat up to your personal standards. We're looking good. Beef has been browned. I'm just gonna put that off to the side for a hot second. Let's keep using this Dutch oven. I'm gonna lower the heat down. Is that enough fat to, no. Everything is kind of dried up and cooked onto the side of the pan there, so I'm gonna add just a little hit of pork fat. I'm gonna add in 1.5 cups of sliced onions. We have no shortage of spatulas we can use for this Yeah, we're gonna bring out the snowman today. It's just been a while since you guys have seen him, you know? So behind this dish right here, I got another frying pan going, browning the lardon in this pan over here. But brown it lightly. Remove the onions. I've lightly browned the lardon, so that's good. I'm gonna take this out with the slotted spoon, and I'm gonna put it on the plate next to the beef over there off camera. I keep running out of fat in this thing, so I'm gonna add the fat from the lardon. So this is interesting. This is the first time in the show's history that I've used rice. 1 cup of white, raw, unwashed rice, and I have to just add it into this pan with the fat. And what do I have to do? Once that is turned into a milky color, yeah, I guess, bowl me. Thank you. Let's get the rice in there. 1 cup worth of white wine. And this is a dry white wine. It's a Sauvignon Blanc. And a dry white wine, as I've explained in other episodes incorrectly, is a wine that has little to no residual sugar. I need to deglaze the shit out of this thing. Great. Boil that down. Get off all the fun stuff. This is deglazed, it looks nice. However, there was a little burnt patch on the bottom of the pan, and some of that burnt stuff has kind of scraped up into the wine, so I want to strain it. I'd like to make sure that doesn't taste burnt. Wow! It doesn't taste burnt, that tastes like an interesting take on white wine. I have deglazed this thing, but you can see there's still some burnt patches on the bottom. I think I'm just gonna clean it all off. I know some of you purists might get angry at me, but the whole thing could be avoided if you just use 2 separate pans, as Julia had recommended, but I chose not to because I go against the grain. So in the cleaned out casserole, I'm gonna add in the beef and the lardon, the onions, the white wine I used for the deglazing. We're not adding in the rice. No, we save that. 2 to 3 cups of beef stock, and that needs to come to almost the height of the beef. I'd say perfect. All right, so 2 cloves of garlic that I need to mash with this thingamajig. There's always some that gets stuck in there. Here's the rest of it. Add in half a teaspoon of thyme. Of course, we're gonna need a bay leaf, and she tells me to crumble it up. I refuse. I've done it before. It's not my preferred method. I'd rather just keep it whole and then just yank it out when I'm done with it rather than eating it. I don't know, it's just not my thing. 1 whole bay leaf. That is a pinch of saffron. 1/4 teaspoon of pepper, please. And salt to taste. Once I got that to a simmer, lid goes on. Into the preheated oven, 350 degrees, bottom rack, for an hour. So I boiled up some water and I added some tomatoes in for 10 seconds only. Took them out and cut out the stems, and that makes for easy peeling. Cut them in half crosswise, trying to extract as much juice and seeds out of these things as possible, so I squeeze them gently over this sieve. Honestly, I don't get too worked up about that step, because if there's a couple seeds in there, so be it. I'll get over it. And a rough chop. After an hour. Ooh. I'm gonna add in my tomatoes. It's around 1 pound worth. So I gotta stir in the tomatoes. Bring this over here. Gotta come back up to a simmer. While you're over here, why don't you throw in a little more salt? I think it needs it. Back into the oven for another hour. 3, 2, I've been checking this bad boy. I know what it looks like. Immediately turn the oven up to 375. Let's take a look what's under the hood. Each time I look at this thing, it looks better and better. Tilt the casserole on its side to remove the fat. It's kind of hard to distinguish where the fat is, honestly. Whenever she says something like you should have 2 to 2.5 cups worth of liquid in here, I take that kind of seriously because I've underdone it like the cassoulet, where there was no liquid left over, or I've overdone it, like the chicken pot pie I recently made. So I'm just gonna make sure that 100% I have enough liquid in here for whatever the next task may be. All right, that's why you check, man. After a very thorough investigation, I have found out that I only had a cup and a half worth of liquid in here, give or take, maybe just a little bit more than that. But that's not enough, especially when you want 2 to 2.5 cups worth. I'm gonna add around a cup worth of beef stock in here, just to be safe. Now the meat needs to be almost tender at this point, so can we easily stick a fork in? Yes. Is it tender? Very much so. There's the rice that we sauteed earlier today. Remember that? It's its moment. Moment to shine. We gotta add that in, right? Yeah, stir in the rice. Now do you see why I wanted to make sure I had enough liquid? Stir that around. Add in a little more salt. All right, let's move this operation over here. Get it to a simmer. This goes back into the oven. Remember, I turned it up to 375 this time for a final 20 minutes. We're not allowed to stir it. We gotta let the rice cook. So just leave it be and have a good time. A little Parmesan, anyone? Alternatively, if you have Swiss cheese, go with Swiss, but I have Parm, and actually, you know what? I prefer Parm today. I'm in a mood. Cups worth of this, so, you know, hence the reason why I haven't stopped yet. Whoop, oi! Julia told me not to touch this thing until the rice was cooked. Here's hoping. Whoa. That rice really just... Okay, the rice really just kind of soaked everything up. There's no more liquid in here, guys. It's kind of like the same deal as the cassoulet. A little more salt. While you're at it, why don't a couple more hoots of pepper as well. Would you look at that? I didn't forget. The bay leaf. Keep that in your back pocket. Delicately, just before serving, fold in the cheese. I'm gonna add in that much now, see how it goes, and you know, if I want more, I want more. Before adding any more cheese, we should definitely have a taste, see what this is all about. Don't change a thing. You know what'd be really nice on top of this thing? A little chopped up parsley as well. And a baguette. Order up! Ugly, delicious, but beautiful. Quite content. Good grief, Charlie Brown. That was stellar. You know, it's, let's be honest here, it may not look like much. In fact, it's fairly unphotogenic, if you don't mind me saying. When I said earlier today that I was gonna set out to make a stew, that's the last thing I had in mind. I don't know, I wasn't expecting the rice to just, I don't know, commandeer the stew like that, but it did. I mean, that beef was tender AF. The lardon and the perfect amount of saltiness to that, that's why you simmer your bacon. I've learned. You want to be careful with adding that Parmesan cheese because a little goes a long way. If you added just a little bit more than I did, it would have been too much. But it was just like the perfect level of Parmesan. So I just went online to search really quickly to see if other people have had similar results with this stew, and everyone else has looked similar to mine. It appears that I have made it correctly. Hopefully. That's it. That's all. This was Jamie and Julia. Bon appetit. Au revoir. That sounds like the end of the world. What on earth is that?